The story kicks off in a dungeon where a party is hunting a giant rat. Swordsman Zoid slashes the rat with his blade. Then, Mage Jolene finishes it off by burning it with her spell. Meanwhile, Appraiser Ein stands at a distance, watching them fight. Afterward, they order Ein to collect the rat's valuable parts. Struggling with the heavy weight, Ein stumbles and falls. The party mocks him and scolds him for not doing his job properly. Ein apologizes and starts gathering the rat's parts. As this happens, we get a glimpse of how this world works. When someone is born, the Light Goddess and the Darkness Goddess grant them a job and a skill set. Skills can be honed to unlock various abilities, but jobs are permanent and can't be changed. Jobs are divided into 3 ranks. At the top is the Rare class, which includes merchants and military personnel. Below that is the High Common class, home to swordsmen and mages. And at the bottom is the Low Common class, which consists of farmers and appraisers like Ein. As Ein appraises the rat, he sees that its rank is F, but its teeth are D rank. He tries to extract them but can't manage it, so he asks for help. This makes Zoid furious, and he starts beating Ein with his kicks. And Jolene tells him to be thankful to them for giving him work. Ein apologizes to them again and gets back to his task, which involves sticking his hand into the rat's mouth. Zoid and Jolene mock him, comparing him to a trash collector. They keep throwing jabs at him, but Ein silently continues his work. Anger bubbles up inside him, but he doesn't retaliate. He knows that if they kick him out of the party, finding another job will be almost impossible. Ein eventually manages to pull out the rat's tooth, and the group moves forward. A little further ahead, they come across the corpse of a hellhound. They order Ein to collect its materials. Ein points out that this monster shouldn't be here, but Zoid kicks him and tells him to get to work. Ein stays silent and starts collecting. On another path, they spot another corpse. Zoid orders Ein to gather materials from that one too, but Ein hesitates and says this path isn't on the map. Ignoring him, the group starts heading down the path, threatening to kick Ein out of the party. Knowing how hard it is for someone with a low-class job to join another party, Ein reluctantly follows them. When they reach the end of the path, they find multiple hellhound corpses. Something feels off to Ein, because if adventurers had killed these hellhounds, they would have already collected the materials. Suddenly, a pack of hellhounds appears out of nowhere, and the party panics. Zoid orders Jolene to paralyze Ein. Without hesitation, she uses her magic to freeze him in place. Then, the group throws Ein in front of the hellhounds as bait and runs away to save themselves. The hellhounds pounce on Ein, tearing into him. The pain begins to weaken the effects of the paralysis spell. Struggling, Ein manages to free himself by throwing a rock at the hellhounds, and then dumping food from his bag to distract them. He tries to run, but the path ahead is blocked, sealed off by Zoid and Jolene. Desperate, Ein notices another path, but it leads to the edge of a cliff. Panicking and out of options, he decides to jump into the abyss rather than face the hellhounds. As he falls, he curses his useless job for putting him in this position. Ein crashes at the bottom, landing near a waterfall. He's badly injured and on the verge of passing out. Just then, a mysterious girl appears, gently approaches him, and kisses his forehead. Ein catches a faint glimpse of her before losing consciousness. When he opens his eyes, the girl is gone, and in her place stands a massive tree. To his surprise, all his wounds are healed. He notices droplets of water falling from the tree. Curious, he appraises the water and discovers it's Yggdrasil drops, a miraculous liquid capable of instantly healing any injury. Shocked, Ein appraises the tree itself and realizes it's the legendary Yggdrasil tree, a mythical entity that produces infinite mana. Ein is left speechless upon realizing that, long ago, this tree existed on Earth and was the source of all mana in the world. Humans absorb mana from the atmosphere to wield magic. But one day, the tree mysteriously withered and vanished. Even so, humanity continued using magic, leading many to investigate how this was possible, though they never found the tree again, because it had been hidden in this very place. Touched by the tree's presence, Ein places his hand on it in gratitude, before heading toward the exit. As he leaves, the mysterious girl watches him silently. Ein steps through the doorway and picks up a rock to defend himself as he ventures further. The area seems eerily quiet, with no monsters in sight, until suddenly, something slashes off his ear, causing it to fall to the ground. Moments later, his fingers are severed too. Panicked, Ein uses his appraisal skill on the attacker and discovers it's an S-rank monster gremlin, a sadistic creature that delights in tormenting its prey before killing it. The gremlin launches rapid attacks, leaving Ein's body riddled with wounds. Just as the monster is about to finish him off, a death bear, another terrifying S-rank monster, appears and kills the gremlin in one brutal strike. Horrified, Ein realizes he's now face to face with an even deadlier threat. The death bear slashes at his face with its claws, blinding his eyes. It then grabs him in its massive jaws, ready to devour him. But before it can, a magical girl decapitates the bear in an instant. When Ein opens his eyes again, he finds himself back at the base of the Yggdrasil tree, all his injuries miraculously healed. The same beautiful girl is sitting nearby, waiting for him with a cup of tea. Ein keeps staring at Yuri when his mom, Ursula, shows up out of nowhere and forces him to drink some tea. After finishing the tea, Ein compliments Yuri's beauty, but Ursula warns him to stay away from her. Confused, Ein asks Ursula why she saved his life. She explains it was because Yuri asked her to. Ein thanks Yuri, which makes her super happy, but then Ursula gets mad at Ein for even mentioning her daughter's name. That's when Ein is shocked to find out that Ursula is actually his mom. She reveals that she's the guardian of Yggdrasil. When Ein asks what that even means, Ursula explains there are 9 Yggdrasil trees in this world, each with a protector to shield them from danger. She's been there ever since Yuri took root there. Ein, still piecing things together, asks if Yuri isn't human. Ursula drops the truth bomb. Yuri is actually the spirit of the Yggdrasil tree. This gets Ein thinking, how did his eyes and all his injuries heal so fast? Ursula explains that drops from the Yggdrasil tree healed his wounds, but for his eye, she had to create a new one from a piece of the tree itself. Apparently, Yuri begged her to do it. Ein, curious and kind of overwhelmed, asks Yuri why she went that far for him. Yuri shyly admits it's because he touched her and thanked her. Ursula goes on to explain that whenever a human ended up there, Yuri always helped them. But no one ever thanked her. Instead, when they found out the truth about Yuri, they'd break branches off the Yggdrasil and leave. That's why Ein's thank you meant so much to Yuri. It was the first time anyone had appreciated her. After that, Ursula tells Ein to leave, but Yuri begs her not to send him away because the outside world is too dangerous. But Ursula reminds her that she's the tree's guardian and can't leave Yuri alone to escort Ein. Hearing this, Yuri starts crying, and seeing her tears, Ursula finally gives in. She decides to train Ein so he can one day leave the dungeon on his own. Ein is so overwhelmed with gratitude that tears roll down his face, and he hugs them both. Ursula warns him that her training is going to be brutal because she's the most powerful sage in the world. Instead of being scared, Ein gets totally fired up, ready to take on whatever's coming his way. Ursula takes Ein through the doorway and asks him to look ahead, but he can't see anything in the pitch-black space. She tells him to focus and use his spirit eye. Ein concentrates, and suddenly, he can see everything clearly in the darkness. To test him, Ursula throws a stone to wake up a gremlin and tells Ein to use appraisal to dodge its attacks. Ein panics and says appraisal can't do that, but Ursula insists he use his spirit eye instead. When Ein activates his spirit eye, he realizes he can read the gremlin's movements, but before he can react, the gremlin still manages to injure him. Ursula quickly casts a barrier around him and uses drops from the Yggdrasil tree to heal his ear. She reassures him that she'll keep healing him throughout his training. Once he's ready, Ursula removes the barrier, and Ein uses appraisal again. This time, he sees that the gremlin is about to target his right leg. However, just knowing the target isn't enough. Ein pushes himself to use appraisal again and sees the exact timing of the attack. Armed with this new insight, he successfully dodges the gremlin's strike. Overjoyed by his progress, Ein feels that his life is about to change forever. After a week of training, Ein can easily dodge every attack from the gremlin. Seeing his progress, Ursula surrounds him with the barrier and announces it's time for the next phase of training, defeating the gremlin. Shocked, Ein protests, saying he's not ready to fight. But Ursula tells him to trust his spirit eye and hands him a wooden sword crafted from a branch of the Yggdrasil tree. She explains that Yuri endured great pain to break the branch and make this weapon for him. Grateful, Ein thanks Yuri for the sword, and Ursula warns him not to break it under any circumstances. With the sword in hand, Ein faces the gremlin, but his attacks are clumsy and slow. The gremlin dodges every strike with ease. Frustrated, Ursula scolds Ein for not using the full potential of his spirit eye. Determined to do better, Ein activates super appraisal, which makes the gremlin's movements appear incredibly slow. Using this advantage, Ein unleashes a lightning-fast attack, driving the sword into the gremlin with such force that it's pinned to the ground. He's overjoyed to have defeated an S-rank monster. But Ursula isn't done with him yet. She tasks Ein with defeating the rest of the gremlins. Drawing on his newfound skills, Ein successfully takes down each gremlin, feeling stronger and more confident with the victory. Ursula instructs Ein to appraise the gremlin's abilities and turn them into his own. Confused, Ein says that while appraisal lets him understand others' abilities, it doesn't let him acquire them. Ursula explains that with the help of his spirit eye, he can now transform that understanding into actual abilities. Intrigued, Ein gives it a try. As he focuses, the gremlin's super acceleration ability begins to imprint itself in his mind. Excited, he attempts to use it, and suddenly, he's sprinting at an incredible speed. But the strain is too much, his muscles can't handle the acceleration, and they start tearing apart. Without hesitation, Ursula uses Yggdrasil drops to heal his injuries, and Ein tries again. Each time he uses the ability, his muscles rip, and each time, Ursula heals him with the tree's drops. This process is repeated thousands of times. Through this brutal cycle of destruction and healing, Ein's muscles adapt and grow significantly stronger. Eventually, his body becomes resilient enough to handle the immense speed of super acceleration without any damage. Ein starts feeling confident that he can defeat the Death Bear, but Ursula warns him that it will be an incredibly tough fight. Even though she doesn't want him to, she reluctantly agrees to let him appraise her abilities to grow stronger. Curious, Ein asks what ability Ursula has. She reveals her power is Cancel Chant, which allows her to cast spells with just a thought, skipping the need for incantations like most mages. Ein uses appraisal and is stunned to discover that both Ursula and her ability are S+ rank, the highest rank possible. When Ein successfully appraises her ability, Ursula begins training him in magic. However, Ein struggles because his body has very little mana, and what little he has is drained quickly. Seeing this, Yuri replenishes his mana with drops from the Yggdrasil tree. Each time this happens, Ein's body becomes more efficient at absorbing mana, gradually increasing his capacity. After a month and a half of intense training, Ein masters the use of thousands of fireballs and several mid-level spells. His relentless practice has also made his body significantly stronger, and with his spirit eye ability, he's become a formidable fighter. Seeing his progress, Ursula decides he's finally ready to face the Death Bear. She takes Ein to the lair of the beast. Nervous, he hesitates, but Ursula, ever the tough mentor, kicks him straight into the arena to confront the bear. Ein starts the fight by hurling fireballs, but none of them land. Thinking quickly, Ein uses his spirit eye and zips behind the bear, slashing at it with razor-sharp winds, managing to wound it slightly. Enraged, the Death Bear roars and leaps at Ein. But Ein counters with a relentless barrage of fireballs, bombarding the creature until it collapses in defeat. As the smoke clears, Ein stands there, stunned. He can't believe he just defeated S-rank Death Bear so effortlessly. Ein absorbs the Death Bear's ability, and then Ursula announces his training is complete. She takes him back to Yggdrasil and offers him the remaining spirit core, but Ein refuses to accept it. So Ursula explains she's only lending it to him, and it will return to its original place once he dies. Then she implants the spirit core in Ein's eye, but he doesn't feel any different. So she tells him his eye has transformed into a divine spirit prosthetic eye. Suddenly Yuri disappears from there, and Yuri becomes visible again. Ein wonders how that happened. So Ursula explains his eye now functions like Yggdrasil, allowing Yuri to move between the two of them. Yuri adds that Yuri can now heal his injuries instantly too. Ein wonders why Ursula is letting Yuri go with him, and Ursula explains that Yuri has never had a friend since she was born. So she wants Yuri to explore the outside world through him. Ursula then gives Ein a mark of unlimited storage on his hand, and a spirit sword made from Yggdrasil. Finally, she makes Ein swallow a magical stone that connects her consciousness to his, so she can always keep an eye on him. Ein asks Yuri what she wants to do outside. She says she wants to meet her family. Ursula explains the rest of Yggdrasil is scattered across 9 dungeons around the world. So Ein promises he'll help her reunite with her family. Ein finds himself at a split path in the dungeon. Ursula already scouted the both paths, and advises him to take the right one, and warns him about a giant venomous snake ahead. So Ein is surprised to realize that his eye now has such advanced abilities. He quickly takes down the snake with ease, and Ursula appraises its abilities. But Ein is puzzled that he's not experiencing his usual headache, so Yuri explains she already healed his pain before it even started. Soon, Ein arrives in front of a massive door. Ursula informs him that behind this door lies the dungeon's core. Destroying it will allow him to return to the surface, but the core is guarded by the dungeon's boss monster, and he must defeat it to proceed. Doubt creeps into Ein's mind. He's unsure if he's strong enough to beat the boss monster. So Yuri encourages him to believe in himself. Ein remembers that he's no longer the weak person he used to be. He has grown stronger. So Ein opens the massive door, revealing the dungeon's core glowing ominously inside. Suddenly a magical circle activates, and a gigantic monster materializes before him. Ein tells Yuri to hide in his eye for safety, and Ursula instructs him to get closer to the monster. As Ein approaches, the monster strikes with a massive punch. So Ein strengthens his arms to block the attack, but the impact still injures his body, so Yuri instantly heals his wounds. Ein then uses the venom to attack the demon, causing its arm to dissolve. So the enraged monster launches a series of relentless attacks, forcing Ein to retreat and hide momentarily. Ursula gives him permission to unleash his most powerful move. So Ein summons a massive fireball and hurls it at the demon. The fireball engulfs the monster completely, leaving nothing but ashes behind. Yuri quickly heals Ein's remaining injuries, and he thanks her for her help. Ein appraises and absorbs its abilities, and Ursula appears there, and informs him that the dungeon core can enhance his eye's power even further. Ein immediately agrees to do this. So Ursula takes the dungeon core and merges it into his eye, upgrading its level to 2, making his vision and abilities even more powerful. As they step out of the dungeon, Ursula explains the pit Ein originally fell through is now sealed, ensuring that no one will ever disturb Yuri again. So they return to the surface together. Meanwhile, back in the village, Zoid is busy recounting his version of events. He fabricates a story, claiming that Ein sacrificed himself to save everyone from the Hellhounds, and he pretends to regret Ein's death. The villagers, moved by his tale, believe him, and Zoid feels confident that the truth will never come out. But just then Ein appears, and the sight of him terrifies Zoid, who freezes in fear. Ein reveals the truth to everyone, exposing Zoid's lies and cowardice. So the furious villagers turn on Zoid and begin to attack him. However, Ein intervenes and stops them, because Zoid gave work to a useless person like him, and he believes he met Yuri and Ursula because of him. The villagers are stunned by Ein's newfound maturity, realizing that he has truly changed. After defeating another dungeon's boss monster and absorbing its abilities, Ein receives the dungeon core from Ursula. The core grants him the power to read any form of ancient or cryptic writing. However, they don't find Yggdrasil in this dungeon. Ursula explains locating the dungeons connected to Yggdrasil is no easy task. Suddenly, they hear distant screams for help, so Ein swiftly eliminates the attacking monsters, and Yuri and Ursula heals the injured. Ein comes to checks on them, but the young girl suddenly hugs him, and the man introduces himself as Jasper, the head of the merchant guild, while the girl reveals herself as Claudia, the third princess of the kingdom. Claudia and Jasper take them to the royal palace. There Claudia tries to hug Ein again, but Yuri steps in and blocks her, boldly declaring that she is Ein's wife. But Claudia states she wants to become Ein's second wife. Yuri is shocked by this, while Ursula thinks Yuri might have finally made a friend. Suddenly Jasper expresses his desire to marry Ein, and Ein wonders what he means. So Jasper leads them to his basement, which is filled with collections of jewels and treasures. Jasper reveals his passion for collecting diamonds and jewelry, and reveals he knows Ein's eye contains a Yggdrasil spirit core. Jasper goes on to tell a story. A long time ago Yggdrasil existed on Earth, but it used all its power to seal the demon king Micturian. As a result, only fragments of its spirit core were left behind. Jasper has been searching for these spirit cores for years, which is why he wants to marry Ein, to gain access to his eye's power. Ursula sides with Jasper and encourages him to marry, reasoning that gaining Jasper's knowledge would make it much easier to locate the remaining Yggdrasil. However, Ein firmly declines the proposal. Instead, he asks Jasper for any information about the other spirit cores. Jasper admits that he knows the locations of a few cores and agrees to guide Ein to them. Ein reaches the dungeon Jasper told him about, but the entrance inside is blocked. Ursula senses some kind of teleportation magic on the wall, and the moment Ein touches it, he suddenly finds himself in a massive jungle. He's completely shocked by the sight when he suddenly hears a girl's voice. Yuri recognizes it and says it's his sister, Pina. Yuri asks Pina where she is, but she just tells them to cross the jungle to reach her. Ein asks her to teleport them to her, but Pina says she doesn't know teleportation magic. Instead, she warns them that she has set up all kinds of dangerous traps in the jungle. Ein tells Yuri to hide inside his eye, and then he starts moving forward into the jungle. Pina tells him this hidden dungeon is the most dangerous one yet, but Ein refuses to back down. Pina gets excited because Ein is about to fall into a hidden pit, but thanks to Ursula, he avoids it just in time. Ursula keeps saving Ein from the rest of the hidden traps, which makes Pina super pissed. Yuri explains that Pina enjoys trapping people, which makes Ein think she actually enjoys killing them. But Pina quickly clarifies that she always kicks people out of the dungeon before they die. Right then an S-rank plant-like monster appears in front of them, and attacks Ein with sleeping powder. But it has zero effect on him because of his all-ailment resilience skill. Pina gets even more annoyed after hearing that. Ein just pulls out his sword and easily takes down the monster. Suddenly, he gets attacked out of nowhere, and he has no clue who's behind it. But Pina is shocked that the attacks aren't affecting him at all. Ein explains that he has surprise attack nullification, and thanks to a movable fortress, even normal attacks won't do anything to him. Pina assumes that if attacks don't work on him, then he probably can't attack her monsters either. But then Ursula detects the monsters' locations, and Ein quickly immobilizes them. Pina gets furious that he's effortlessly destroying her S-rank monsters. So, she sends out 2 S-rank monsters at once, but Ein defeats them in a single strike. Pina is left standing there, absolutely stunned. Meanwhile, Zoid is wandering through the jungle in terrible shape, blaming Ein for everything that's happened to him. When he finally makes it back to the city, he spots Jolin and tries to talk to her. But Jolin straight up refuses and tells everyone that Zoid forced her to use magic on Ein. That only makes people angrier at him, and they kick him out of the bar. Zoid, still blaming Ein for everything, decides to take on a C-rank quest to restore his reputation. He heads to a dungeon, but by accident he touches the teleportation stone and ends up in the same jungle. As soon as he takes a few steps forward, he falls into a hidden pit. But instead of landing on spikes, he somehow gets teleported back outside. Pina's voice tells him that no one actually dies in this dungeon. So Zoid goes right back inside. He keeps getting caught in hidden traps over and over, but instead of giving up, he keeps pushing forward. Then out of nowhere a massive monster appears, and absolutely wrecks him. But even though he's badly injured, Zoid refuses to leave the jungle. Just as the monster is about to eat him, Ein shows up and one-shots it. Zoid is shocked beyond words. Seeing how much Ein has changed fills him with rage. But before he can say anything, Ein uses appraisal on the monster, then takes out Yggdrasil drops and pours them over Zoid, instantly healing all his wounds. Before Zoid can even ask what's going on, Ein knocks him unconscious and tells Pina to teleport him out. Ein finally reaches the boss monster's room, but Pina tells him he can't meet her unless he defeats the boss. He hesitates, thinking that doing so might shut down the dungeon, but Pina clarifies that won't happen unless the core is destroyed. So Ein steps inside. The entire room looks like a dense jungle, but suddenly, the ground starts shaking violently. Ein quickly flies into the air, and right then, a massive turtle-like monster emerges from the earth. Ursula tells Ein to attack it with fireballs, but they don't do anything. The turtle then launches a water attack, but Ein slows it down and reflects it back at it, but it still has zero effect. That's when Ein notices marks from his attacks behind the turtle, and an idea clicks in his head. He walks right in front of the turtle, and it stomps him with its massive foot. But Ein takes zero damage, because he knows the giant turtle is just an illusion. He snaps his fingers, and the turtle's true form is revealed, a tiny little turtle. Ein appraises it, and Ursula is shocked at the information. Instead of killing it, Ein asks Pina to just surrender. But Pina refuses and insists he has to defeat the turtle properly. Ein keeps pushing Pina to give up, and eventually, she has no choice but to give up. Pina opens the door and invites them inside. The moment Yuri sees her sister, she lights up with joy, and both sisters get emotional. After a bit, Pina expresses her desire to leave the dungeon and go outside with them. Yuri turns to Ein and asks what he thinks, and Ein agrees to take her along. That's when the tiny turtle suddenly transforms into a girl and introduces herself as Kuroheim, Pina's guardian. Ursula immediately starts apologizing to Kuroheim, then tells Ein to formally ask for her permission. So Ein asks if he can take Pina with him. Kuroheim explains that her ability is barrier, and then says she also wants to leave the dungeon. Ein agrees to take both of them along. Ursula then processes their spirit core and places it inside Ein's eye, increasing its level to 4. Yuri is overwhelmed with happiness after reuniting with her sister, and Ursula thanks Ein for making it happen. Ein, determined, promises to reunite Yuri with her 6 other siblings as well. Meanwhile, Zoid regains consciousness. But instead of being angry, he just cries, struggling to process how much Ein has changed. Jasper takes Ein with him to the guild, but Ein is worried about what people think of him. So Jasper assures him that he will be fine with him. The receptionist asks what business they have, and Ein replies that he wants to sell some items he found in a dungeon. So she asks him to show his adventurer card, but she is shocked that he is just an F rank with the appraiser job class. She thinks he is trying to deceive Jasper, and Ein feels bad that she considers him a scammer. Everyone there laughs at him since he is just a commoner, so Jasper tells him to show the items. Ein brings out a mountain of legendary items, shocking everyone in the guild with how rare they are. They assume he must have stolen them from someone. Ein hates how people always make fun of him. But then the Royal Capital Guild Master Megan arrives, and tells them to stop judging him by his job. She notices something special about Ein's eyes, making him wonder if she is referring to his prosthetic eye. The receptionist finishes appraising the items and confirms they are all genuine. Jasper then assures everyone that Ein defeated all the monsters himself, leaving them shocked at how powerful Ein is. The rude receptionist apologizes for her behavior, and Megan tells her to be respectful even to those with common job classes. Ein smiles, realizing there are people like her in the guild. Megan becomes interested in Ein and invites him to join her guild. She then leaves, giving him time to think about it. The receptionist asks Ein to wait in the back room for his payment, but Jasper tells him to bring out the items from clearing a hidden dungeon. Everyone is amazed that he managed to do that and starts praising him like his fans. Ein quickly becomes overwhelmed by their many questions, so he runs away. He returns home to take a bath, but Yuri and Pika join him, making him feel embarrassed. He tells them to return to his eye, but Pika refuses to do this. Suddenly Ursula also appears, warning him not to touch her daughter. So Ein decides to get out of the bath. There he finds Kuroheim resting. She mentions that after a long time, Pika is happy, making Ein wonder if she sees Pika as her daughter. Kuroheim considers Pika her biological daughter. Ein realizes that Yuri has 6 more sisters he needs to find. Because one of them had withered away ages ago, Kuroheim reveals that her spirit core wasn't completely destroyed, meaning their elder sister Echidna may still be alive. However, they have no idea where she or the others are. She asks if he is giving up the search, but Ein assures her that he is determined to reunite Yuri with her family. Kuroheim feels that there is something special about him that draws people to him. The next day, as Ein goes to the hall, he finds that Megan has come to meet him. Jasper tells him she is here to make a request. She informs him about the long-disappeared behemoth, a powerful ancient dragon created by the demon king Mictran, which has resurfaced and is attacking passing merchants. She requests Ein to take on the SS rank monster. Jasper warns him that he could die on this mission, but Ein surprises them by agreeing without a second thought. Megan then provides him with the quest details and sends him to a desert. Ursula warns it is an earth dragon that can convert enemy magic into its own mana, so Ein realizes he can only rely on his sword and abilities. He finally arrives at the behemoth's location, and Ursula instructs him to drag it out of the sand. Ein uses a powerful magic attack, creating a massive hole in the ground, which awakens the ancient dragon from its slumber. As the behemoth looks at Ein, it remembers that it was once born as a supreme being. It had attacked many towns in search of a worthy challenge, but never found anyone stronger than itself. It asks Ein why he woke it up, and Ein replies that he came here to defeat it, which amuses the behemoth. It reveals that it was created by the Demon King Micturian, making Ein think that the Demon King must not be that strong. The behemoth thinks Ein is insulting Micturian and attacks him with magical energy balls. However, Ein manages to dodge all of its attacks. The behemoth then tries to capture him with sand attacks, but Ein escapes every time with his quick speed. He easily cuts through its arm, which is covered in orichalcum hide. The behemoth then disappears into the sand, moving underground beneath Ein. As Ein wonders where it went, it suddenly emerges from the ground and manages to devour him. However, Ein fires a grand spell from inside its body, completely shattering the behemoth into pieces. As the behemoth looks at Ein in its shattered state, it realizes that he is a supreme being and is happy to have been defeated by such an opponent. It wonders why Ein took no damage in the explosion, and Ein reveals that he used a barrier to protect himself. He also cast an illusion spell on the behemoth the moment they met, meaning it had only been chasing his mirage. Ein dispelled the illusion when the behemoth went underground, allowing him to attack its real body. The behemoth realizes that it was defeated the moment they met. As its body begins to disappear, it reveals that it longed to taste defeat. As Ein appraises its abilities, all the ladies come to praise him for the fight, and he thanks them for lending him their power. Claudia invites them to the royal palace, and as she arrives, she apologizes for making them wait. She then reveals that her father wants to meet Ein. When the king arrives, Ein becomes nervous, but it turns out that the king is a chill guy, so Ein relaxes a bit. As they sit down to talk, the king thanks Ein for defeating the ancient dragon behemoth, but Ein says he merely did what he could. The king realizes that Ein is just as Claudia described, and she describes him as humble despite being incredibly powerful. The king bows his head in gratitude for saving his daughter, but Ein tells him to thank Yuri instead. As the king does so, Yuri hides behind Ein's back, revealing that she is shy around people. The king admires Ein's humility and believes he will be a great future husband for his daughter. He then gives Ein a royal watch, granting him unrestricted access anywhere. Ein thinks it will help him find Yuri's family, so he thanks the king for it. Meanwhile, stories of Ein's adventures spread quickly. Everyone starts talking about how he defeated the behemoth. Zoid becomes frustrated that people are treating Ein like a hero while he is now seen as nothing more than a rubbish picker. As he blames Ein for all his problems, he hears a lady offering him her strength. The lady introduces herself as a spirit, and her name is Echidna. Next day, as Yuri wakes up, Pina comes into her room to say hello. Yuri worries about Ein since he has been sleeping for days, but Pina assures her he is just exhausted. However, she senses that Yuri still worries about him, so she suggests they cook something special for him. They decide to go to the market for grocery shopping. Meanwhile, Ein has nightmares about his past. Zoid always used to mock him all day, and all he could do was smile. He never had the courage or self-worth to respond to the constant mockery. He then sees what his fate would have been if Yuri hadn't helped him that day. An older version of Ein appears and mocks him as weak, saying he is nothing without Yuri's powers. Ein suddenly wakes up from the nightmare. He wonders what happened after his meeting with the king. Ursula replies that he collapsed from exhaustion and has been sleeping for days. She tells him to rest since he was groaning in his sleep. Ein then tells her he had a nightmare and feels like he is still the same worthless rubbish picker he always was since all his power is borrowed from someone else. Meanwhile, Echidna promises Zoid to help him take revenge against Ein. She tells him about the spirit eye that made Ein the strongest in the world and offers him one as well. Zoid immediately agrees to her offer. Echidna then brings out a dark spirit eye and places it on his forehead. The spirit eye turns Zoid into a green monster. He then jumps high into the sky and rushes to find Ein. As Zoid feels a strong surge of power deep within his body, he spots Jolene with a man. Wanting revenge on her, he kills the man right in front of her eyes. Jolene is immediately terrified, but she recognizes Zoid from his voice. She starts begging for her life, but Zoid mercilessly kills her. He then begins causing chaos in the town, attacking anyone who crosses his path. As Yuri and Pina see people running for their lives, they notice an injured boy who needs help. Yuri rushes towards him and instantly heals him with her holy water. Then, seeing many other injured people nearby, they decide to heal them all. Echidna senses their spiritual energy and orders Zoid to hunt them down. She tells him that if he kills them, Ein will return to his weak self. Zoid immediately moves to attack, but Pina traps him in her barrier. Zoid is unable to break the barrier, so Echidna advises him to use her anti-spirit art. As Zoid casts the anti-spirit art, he easily shatters the barrier. He then leaps toward them, and as Pina casts another barrier to defend them, he breaks it just as easily, badly injuring Pina. As Yuri steps forward to protect her sister, Zoid grabs her in his massive hands. Just as he is about to attack her with his claws, Ein arrives in time to protect her. He tells everyone to go back in his eyes and tries to appraise Zoid, but his skill doesn't work on him. Ursula realizes that Zoid must be using a concealment skill powerful enough to deceive even the divine spirit Eye. As Ein begins to fight Zoid, he attempts to trap him in a spirit barrier, but Zoid easily breaks through it. Watching from afar, Echidna knows Ein's barrier level is too weak against her magic. Zoid starts mocking Ein again, just like he used to in the past. So Ein then realizes that this monster is actually Zoid. Zoid reveals that he too received the spirit's blessings and evolved. He then starts attacking Ein with his monstrous powers, but Ein hesitates to fight back now that he knows Zoid's identity. As Zoid continues attacking Ein, he wonders why Ein doesn't use his power for revenge as he is doing against this town. Ein replies that he is not like Zoid and has never thought about using his power for revenge. However, deep down Ein questions himself. Has he really never thought about taking revenge? Zoid keeps trying to convince Ein that they are alike. But Yuri steps in to defend Ein, stating that he is a kind and strong man. Ursula tells Ein to have self-confidence, reminding him that he was brave and kind even before meeting Yuri. Realizing that he has become strong because of his own efforts, Ein decides to become the person Yuri has faith in. Suddenly mana surges from Ein's body, making Ursula think he has finally become a true protector, capable of unleashing the full potential of his spirit power. As Zoid attempts a surprise attack, Ein counters him with his elbow, which badly damages Zoid. When Zoid charges again, Ein defends with a spirit barrier, but this time Zoid's anti-spirit art fails to break through. Desperate Zoid asks Echidna for more power. She grants it, causing his body to grow even larger. Ein then combines Yuri's power with his spirit powers to launch a powerful attack, which removes the effects of the spirit eye from Zoid. As Ein extends his hand to help him stand, a frustrated Zoid wonders why Ein saved his life. Ein replies that he believes Zoid can change. The guards then take Zoid away. Ein, however, wonders who gave him the spirit eye's power in the first place. Later Echidna collects the remains of the broken spirit eye, planning to retrieve Ein's battle data from it. However, she miscalculated that Zoid would survive in her plan. To cover her tracks, she seals his memory of how he became a demon, ensuring that no one can discover her true plan, reviving the demon king Micturian.